Go for it.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Michael Troy here. Very excited today. We are talking to the amazing artist Chris Anderson. You might know him from Chaotic Neutral, Mountain Bound, Spectral, or his new amazing Patreon comic, Three-Headed Pigman. So we're going to talk comics and art and all that good stuff. So thank you for being here, Chris. It is so good to finally talk to you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, Michael. Thanks. It's nice to finally get a chance to talk to you.
Yeah. So you're kind of like me. I mean, you have your own YouTube channel, you do
Mhm.
comics, you do interviews, you do book reviews and stuff like that. So when did your love affair with comics start? How did that journey begin?
I mean, really deeply into it, probably during the media campaign for Tim Burton's Batman. Probably got a lot of people around my age hooked into it. So I was about 11, I think, and 88 when the media campaign really started going. And by 89 when the movie came out, that was it. I was going to, the gas station and buying Batman comics. And then by, 89, 90 was when, McFarlane was doing Spider-Man, Liefeld was doing X-Force and stuff like that. And it was just, for like a 12, 13-year-old kid, that was just like crack. So that was it. That was it for me in comics. And that was when I was already drawing too. And that's when I was like, I'm doing this for a living.
So you were an artist before your interest in art necessarily doesn't was existed before your interest in comics.
Yeah, I mean, I've been drawing ever since I could hold a crayon, like my mom likes to say. So it was just
Yeah.
finding something specific to channel that into.
Yeah, I used to. My mom is that was an artist and a terrible one at that. Not professional, just amateur at any rate.
Hmm.
And I used to sit on the couch with her and make her draw stuff for me all the time. And finally, she was just like, "You draw it," and she passed me the crayon, and the rest was history. So
Yep.
I'm always grateful for that. It's funny because I think I have like one piece of my mom's art,
Oh,
and it is so funny. Like her anatomy is crazy. Like each hand has like six or seven fingers. And
hey.
everyone had like individual eyelashes with these big gorgeous lips,
Yeah.
and for some reason she had this penchant for wanting to be able to see people's butt from the front view, so their butt would be like attached to the side of their leg. It was so crazy.
She focused
Like
on the important things.
I think so too, and
Yeah.
maybe that sort of informed my artistic style. I don't know, but for better or worse.
Right.
um
Uh,
So I watched some of you have a new, speaking of your YouTube channel, you have a
yeah.
new X-Men Chris Claremont reread thing going on that is very interesting to me because I'm very much on the X-Men 97 tip. Me and
Uh-huh.
one of my friends did a weekly recap of the episodes, and what it really reminded me of is how much I actually love the Chris Claremont comics, you know what I mean? So I've kind of
Yeah.
been wanting to do a reread of myself, but the thing I found interesting, and this, speaks a lot to the nature of comics, is that you're coming into the X-Men during the Jim Lee run. And I
Yeah.
think that it's like such an interesting time to come in because from my mind, that was kind of the beginning of the end. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Most people, I think, that really know the X-Men, that's sort of what they say, you know? It's
So
funny. I find the more that I do this channel, I find the less I know. You know what I mean? The more I'm learning, the more I realize, oh, I don't know anything about, things that all these people, all this like nerd culture, comics culture stuff, that's coming up. And it's really bizarre, a really bizarre feeling. But yeah, I've never read the Claremont X-Men run. And so this is my first time, and I'm doing it with John Coates. And it's like just part of his DNA. He knows it so well, so it's an interesting exercise.
it is an interesting exercise. I'm curious to see how you react to it from, given your position on it, because it's like, Chris Claremont's X-Men, I came into it like with one issue, one like 163, like around the Paul Smith era, which is like, such a golden era in comics, and you'll get there. Like
Yeah.
Not for a long time, but you will get there.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I know. We figured it out. I thought it was going to take 7 years to get through this. It's not going to take 7 years.
I hope not. That's a
It's going to
commitment.
take like a little over two, though.
So then, so what kind of art were you doing before your interest in comics? Are you doing like Bob Ross landscapes? Are you drawing?
No, because my interest in comics happened kind of early. I mean, I was like I said, I was probably about 11 years old when I really took the dive, and I was probably already drawing little comics things here and there. Um, because I have much older brothers. They all had like I went down in the basement and found the first Swamp Thing. They didn't care what it was, so now I have it. It's like
Right.
stuff like that. So they were always lying around. But no, before that, I was just kind of drawing anything. I guess you would call like Garfield comics, right? It's comic strip. So I know that there was a lot of that going on. I was drawing a lot of Garfield. I was drawing a lot of, I think I was just finding patterns and how to put them together to make images. Because I remember like in maybe third grade drawing a wave, like a crest of a wave and then figuring out how to be able to turn that into birds, each crest of the wave and just adding an eye here and then there and sort of putting those together and I don't know, it was just in school and projects and things like that, the teachers would always sort of like focus on how uh they would praise me for that, for what I was drawing. And I think that as a kid, you latch on to whatever people are going to praise you for. And
Right.
so I just kept going and drawing, trying to, copy pictures, trace things, figure things out, and work with clay, do anything creative. And that's just sort of how I've always been. And so, I pushed that side to get praise, I'm sure. And then, when comics came along, it was like, all right, now we're going to shift to how do we tell a story with these pictures?
So who are the artists that are inspiring you? Like when are you noticing artists and when are you like looking at their names and saying like, "Oh my God, I love this artist." And like,
Yeah, it was that 89 90s era, the early 90s. It was Rob Liefeld for sure. I really swallowed that pill hard. I mean, he even had a media campaign with that 501 jeans commercial. I remember sitting there at like watching MTV at the VCR getting ready to like press record as soon as the next commercial came on just so I could catch it.
yeah,
So I was really deep into that, copying all the Liefeld stuff. I loved Whilce Portacio's work. I loved Jim Lee, not as much as I loved Whilce. I loved McFarlane, although I thought he got a little too crazy sometimes, and Silvestri and Eric Larson and all those guys. So actually, really, oddly enough, before those guys left and founded Image, that was like my core group of artists that I really loved.
hmm,
Them and Art Adams,
yeah,
uh, who, rarely came out with stuff, didn't really come out with much while I was reading, because I think Longshot had already come out. Maybe he was doing like classic X-Men covers or something like that. And then I know he did like a Godzilla and a like a Creature
Creature
from the
from the
Black Lagoon
Lagoon.
somewhere, yeah, in there
Yeah,
somewhere. And I was just like Art Adams. You can really, really see where the founders of Image, well, it's not all of them, but some of them really pulled that essence from art. And I think he pulled it from John Golden, and
Michael Golden.
it's or Michael
Yeah,
Golden. Yes, I'm sorry.
100%. Yeah, it's easy to trace like the like the pattern of like artists like
Hmm.
it's like I feel like Michael Golden and John Byrne uh gave birth to Art Adams, who gave
Yep.
birth to the Image guys, and
Yep.
and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like you can see sort of the influence being watered down and beefed up and changed and mired across the plane of comic book history. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think during that time too, there was like there's other paths of artists that I was also kind of looking at because I remember I still have it here. I had issue of Weird War Tales from the 70s, and there was a
Hmm.
story in there that was just drawn, something about it just like blew me away. It gave me that same sort of rush that looking at the those early image guys gave me. And years and years and years later, I figured out it was Alex Nino. And, so I went and back and looked at all of his stuff. And, that stuff sort of influenced me and picking up just random things of random issues of heavy metal, and seeing some of the European art and stuff like that. Things would really stick in my mind, and then I wouldn't see them again, but I would remember them, and it would leak its influence into my art. And then like when I turned probably, I don't know, 17, like the bubble was collapsing on comics. I started playing guitar. Puberty was blasting out the door, and so comics sort of went a little bit to the wayside. Although I always kept my kind of a side eye on it. And then like there was probably a period of maybe 10 years where I didn't really read comics, maybe longer, and I was just playing music. I wasn't even doing that much art, a little bit here and there. I knew art was going to be the thing for me. But when the bubble burst and I kind of realized that comics wasn't going to be the thing that I was going to be able to make a living off of, I moved. I lived in Minnesota, and I turned 19. I moved to LA. I tried to go to animation school at Cal Arts. I didn't get in because they said that I wasn't angry enough. They had their fill of happy artists. They needed more angry artists, and I didn't know what that
That's
meant.
a shitty reason to reject
Yeah, the real
somebody.
shitty reason. And started an animation company, and that's when I realized that I hated animation. And then started teaching, just teaching like elementary and preschool. And during that time, it was probably like the New 52, whenever that was coming out. I had seen like a Sean Murphy book, I think Joe the Barbarian. And I
Hmm.
was kind of like, this style intrigues me. This is interesting. And that pulled me back in. And all of a sudden I had a pull list again and and I was like, I should take another crack at this because I always felt like comics is what was going to be the thing that I do for the rest of my life. And it took a while, to come back as an artist, but eventually I was able to leave my job and just do comics for a living.
Well, good for you. My God. That's not many people can say that, right?
No, no.
But so haven't you actually worked done stuff for heavy metal? Am I right in
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
So
no, I
that's
did about
been
12
cool.
about 12 issues of heavy metal. The first one that I did, well, actually, I'll back it up because what happened was I woke up one day and I had an email from Tim Seeley. And he was asking me if I was available to do some art. And I said, yeah, of course I was. I was doing literally nothing at the time. And he said, okay, well, I got a script from Greg Nicotero, who's bringing back Creepshow. He wants you to do the art for the story that he wrote. The thing is, it's a 12 issue, or I'm sorry, it's a 16-page television script. I need you to turn it into a 12-page comics script, and I need it done in 6 days. And also, do your best Bernie Wrightson.
Wow. No problem.
Yeah, no problem. So I didn't sleep for 6 days. Nowhere
Because obviously you
near.
don't say no to something like this, but
No, you don't say no to that. No,
yeah,
especially when you have nothing going on. But even when you do have something going on, you drop everything and you do it.
of course.
Um, so I did that. It didn't turn out that great, to be honest with you. But it exists. And and we did like a big signing at San Diego that year. That was really, really cool. And then Tim was he was an editor at Heavy Metal, so he said you know, thanks for doing that. You saved my life. Anytime you want to do anything for heavy metal, just let me know. And I was like, how about now?
Right.
So he hooked me up with Justin Jordan to do an issue, and we did that. And I said, I want to write and draw my own stuff for this. And he said, pitch something. So I pitched something called Off, about tiny monsters that invade people's bodies. And he said, yeah, it's pretty good, but it's not heavy metal enough. So I literally, this is what I did, as I added 2 pages of a shower scene. And he said, that's heavy metal enough.
All right. Well, what a save.
Yeah. And then I did probably like 2 or 3 other stories after that, that were not related. And then I started this like what was to be a 12 issue run that connected to Off. It was Off was the first story in this bigger story I wanted to tell. And then Heavy Metal folded, before I got to finish the story, and so I was able to get the rights back to that stuff. So soon I will be finishing the story and releasing it myself, probably through crowdfunding or something like that.
So what is your art like journey like before this? Like what kind of art jobs are you doing? People don't generally call up people based on their exemplary work as like preschool teachers to give them art jobs. So
Well, actually, that was it. It was just the kids' work, like
yeah.
an Instagram post. No, I was doing some anthology work, and then my friend David Acampo, he wrote this story called Lost Angels, that I just really loved, and uh, we ended up getting it placed at a publisher called Comicer. And while I was teaching, I was also drawing at night. So, it wasn't just like, I'm going to quit my job and become a comic artist. No, like there was years of work that I was, building up a body of work. So Lost Angels came out. A lot of people really loved it. That was it's going on maybe 10 years ago at this point now. And from there, not only did I get all the heavy metal stuff from that, David and I also did another book called Spectral Showcase of Fear, which just came out last year in its entirety, because it was about some 12 page stories that I drew over the course of like maybe 6 years. And then Chris Burnham had given a copy uh, of Lost Angels to Mark Sable, his friend. And Mark loved the work. And so it was about 7 years ago, maybe at this point, maybe longer. It was actually whenever Lost Angels came out, at San Diego Comic-Con, he gave it to Mark, and Mark said, "Hey, I have this book. It's sort of like Dungeons and Dragons based story. I have an idea. I think that you'd be really good for it. Do you want to work on it?" And so about 6 years ago, I drew Chaotic Neutral. So that all happened while I was working. And then funny enough, like Chaotic Neutral just came out this year, even though I drew it like 6 years ago, 7 years ago at this point. Um, so yeah, like there were things that were happening, that steps along the way, you know. I think the biggest thing that was the most helpful thing for me to get the ball rolling was uh Dan Panosian, Dave Johnson, Jeff Johnson founded a thing called Drink and Draw. There's chapters everywhere now, all sorts of different spin-offs and versions of it. Some are affiliated with it, some aren't. But the initial one that they started took place in a couple places, but I started going to it at Casey's Bar downtown, which is no longer there after uh, lockdown. But I would go in, they would be there, other people would show up. Jim Lee would show up. Sienkiewicz would show up. You'd get these just heavy hitter artists showing up randomly. But what I would do is I would draw a page. I would go home. I went home. I looked up a comic script randomly on the internet, drew the page, brought it in, showed each of them individually, let them give me advice. I'd go home, I'd redraw it with their advice, I'd bring it back. They'd say, "Yeah, that's better, but you still this, the anatomy, you should use reference here. You know that your fire escapes that fire escapes don't look like that. Step right outside the door and look up. You're going to see a fire escape, like use reference." There was a lot of things that I was like resistant to at the time, and it's just repetition and building those skills and having tenacity if that's even the right word, but like just the drive to be better, to do better, to be as best as you can at your craft. And that's what I was doing. So like those guys really taught me a lot, and that's how I met, a lot of people that I know in the industry now is just going to this thing and really sticking my foot in. I like to say I stick my foot in doors that it doesn't belong in. You know, insert myself into conversations between two big comic creators, and all of a sudden, they're like, maybe for a second, they're a little like, what's this guy coming in here? But then all of a sudden, now we have a rapport, and things build. And as an artist, I knew when I left my job, I knew before that, but if I was going to do this, I had to treat it like it's a sport, like sports training or weight training or something like that. Like you have to do everything that you can just to get better every time you sit down at the table, whether you're exhausted or not, and just keep going. And that's the only way that you're going to make it in this business.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think self-awareness is like a big part of it too. You have to have like a thick skin. You have
Yep.
to not take it personally. Like, it does suck. It's very vulnerable. I mean, I can't imagine handing Bill Sienkiewicz a page of my art and saying, "Tell me what's wrong with this." Like, I would just like flat out pass out from just meeting him in the first place. So,
Right.
about invaluable advice, and those are the people you want to listen to. And it's like, it's exciting, you know what I mean? It's like, it sucks to hear that your art isn't good enough, but the good news is like you said, with hard work and tenacity and like, just the desire to be better, you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to really listen to those people too.
What artist doesn't become better just simply from drawing and drawing and drawing? I mean, that's the biggest thing you can do as an artist is draw, period. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And life draw. That's the
Exactly.
biggest one.
I know I talk about art a lot when I'm doing like critiques. I focus a lot on the art, and it's like I always point out when an artist has the wherewithal to draw the mundane things and the Dre. I'm like, this is why we go to art school, or this is why if we don't go to art school, we just learn to draw from life and we draw everything, and we don't just draw people and superheroes. You gotta draw that bowl of fruit, and that's super. I mean, I remember taking like classes and drawing, drapery, and just like thinking it was like the most boring thing on the planet. But now I'm so glad I know how to draw it. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's one thing to be able to draw, beautiful women and big guns and muscles and stuff like that. But if like nothing annoys me more than looking through a comic and the art is really good. I see this a lot with like the indie books I get, and so I'm always very appreciative when I get like an indie self-published comic book and like it's all there. Like I hate like realizing I've been through like 5 pages and there's no backgrounds or something, and like
Yeah.
it's in yourself such a disservice as an artist because it's noticeable whether you think it is or not. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, and the other thing that I think that a lot of indie creators don't pay attention to is their layouts and their compositions. Because I'll get a lot of books where like, oh, you can draw really well, but every single one of these panels, you have the character splat right in the middle of it, which is the worst place to put something unless you're putting a punctuation on the moment. Especially if because where are you putting the word balloons and they're all crammed over in the corner, and like and there's no flow to it whatsoever. It's just all like like a Polaroid of a person for like a passport, like a passport photo. Like every single one is a passport photo. You know what I mean?
Like I first discovered you from your work on Ghost Agents. So
Mm.
what led to Ghost Agents? How did you want to talk about that? How that came about and how that what
Ghost
Ghost Agents
Agents came about, well, when with lockdown, everybody was sort of um I had sort of discovered the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel pre-lockdown, and then during lockdown I discovered the Facebook group of people that were, kind of into it, and I wanted to touch base more with like a fan base, really, and more like-minded people, and just kind of like dive a little bit deeper into all of this, into the community. And it seemed like such a it was is such a really positive community. And during that time they were gearing up to do the Image Grand Design book, and I was already doing storyboards and other comic stuff, but I wanted to be a part of it because, like I said, like those early image stuff, and those guys, they were a huge part of like they were like the gun firing at the beginning of the my comics race, so I wanted to sort of help pay tribute to that. And so I got a hold of like Eli Schwab, and Rocco Jerome was editing it, and I said, I don't know how much time I can put into this, but if there's anything that any of you guys need from me, just to help get it over the finish line, because I know that making a comic with one artist and writer is like herding cats. You got all of these people who aren't artists and writers for a living, all very excited about this project. It's going to be worse than herding cats, like you're going to have stumbles along the way. And if there's any way that I can help, just let me know. And so Rocco was super appreciative of that when he was trying to, edit it. And I did a few things here and there for the book, and did the Grand Disaster cover and some interior stuff for both sides of the book. And then afterwards, I was sort of thanking him for uh, letting me be a part of the project, and maybe we can work together again on something. And Wizard 2 was getting ready to be put together by Eli at Cosmic Line Productions. And I was gonna put my own comic in there. But Rocco said, well, why don't we do, I have this idea for this thing called Ghost Agents I want to do. Uh why don't we do a Ghost Agent story for it? And I said, yeah, let's work together on that. What the heck? Why not? And so Craig CK and Rocco were already working on a Ghost Agent story, but it was taking a while to get to the finish line on that. Just due to the fact that it was a longer story. And ours ended up coming out first in Wizards, so that ended up being like the first appearance of his Donna Prentice character. I kind of designed that lady, and the what are they called, like the Crimson people. I got to design all those things and put them in there, and so it was a lot of fun to work on that one. And then from there, it just blew up into this whole other thing, and other issues. And I ended up contributing a few things to that too. I did the cover of the last issue. I'm gonna do a cover for the next one and an interior story. So yeah, it's just kind of snowballed, and Rocco's sort of been leading the charge on the Ghost Agent stuff. So it's been fun to watch it grow.
cover is really the last
Yeah.
cover.
Oh, thank you.
Um, so you also are a storyboard artist. Is that still something you do? I mean, or is it just mostly comics at this?
Well, as you well know, comics don't pay that great.
That's top of
And we both live in Los Angeles, which is rent is insane. So, you know, I'm probably able to pay the rent off of comics, but it's very expensive. So I also do storyboards, which those pay really well. And in fact, just this month I got into the Art Directors Guild as a senior illustrator because I just worked on the Penguin TV show, doing boards for that. And so, yeah, I've been doing commercials. I worked on Insecure, and Rap Shit, and Transparent, and a few other TV shows, and then I've done a lot of commercials and music videos and things like that, over the years. When I quit my job, I was like, I need something now. So what I did was I just Googled production company Los Angeles, and brrr, like I don't know, 800 things came up, and I just made a thing, like a cut and paste email saying, "My name's Chris Anderson. I'm a storyboard artist. If you need anybody, just please let me know. Here's my portfolio," and sent him out, emailed them all out, and out of I collapsed at about 200 of them. There were more, but I was like, yeah, I can't keep going. Out of those, 20 got back to me. Out of those, two of them ended up hiring me, and then they snowball from there. So yeah, I do storyboards too. They're not as often as I would like. I'd like to do more, but that's just a matter of time and networking and all of that fun stuff.
It occurred to me as you were talking that storyboard art, like it's something that I looked into. I guess I didn't look into art for LA for did any of it, but a lot of comic book artists, a lot of artists from back in the day that you wonder where the hell they went to, just went off to do storyboard art because stuff was better money. But then they often come back and do comics occasionally because it just occurred to me that as financially, rewarding, I guess, storyboard art is, nobody ever sees it. So it's like that's kind of like got to be awful as an artist. It's like you're like body work on regular. Say like I think of random sidebars, like the fact that like James Fitz did storyboards for Michael Jackson's Thriller, but like that needs to be a book. Like I would love to
Yeah.
see. I don't know. It'd be very interesting, but
Yeah, I've got a couple books on storyboards here that I'm going to feature on the show that have some really cool stuff in it. There's stuff from like Gabriel Hardman and stuff like that. He works, obviously, was a comic artist, started in the 90s under a pseudonym, and then ended up doing things like those Green Lantern year one, year two, I think, books, and a bunch of Planet of the Apes, and like a whole bunch of other stuff. Like his art's amazing. But yeah, like he makes most of his living doing storyboards for like Planet of the Apes and Christopher Nolan movies and things like that. A lot of people say like storyboards and comics are the same thing, and they're not the same thing. They're both visual storytelling, but the language of it is completely different because you're drawing a film, as opposed to, the language of film is different than the language of comics. And you got to think of other things when you're storyboarding too that a lot of people don't think about. Because like if I'm left, if the director says, "All right, just storyboard this scene for me," which happens, I'll just storyboard a scene, and then all of a sudden it'll come out and it'll be exactly what I storyboarded on my own. It's like basically I directed it, like. But if you put the camera like up here, or put the camera, if you're visualizing like a shot down on somebody, well, now the production needs to get a crane. And so the budget changes, so like there's other things that you need to think about when you're storyboarding, that, it's not the same thing as comics really at all. And I'll tell you, like, sometimes when you have to draw something, that, is like, if it's a show that's kind of like boring, man, I'll tell you, when you come back to drawing comics, you're never more excited to draw comics and not get paid anything.
like yeah, like drawing like talking heads is probably gets a little tedious after a while, and
Yeah.
like because you can't no panel breaks, you know what I mean? So it's
Yep.
like so that's why obviously comic books are more exciting in that regard.
Yeah.
Um, Headed Pigman is that your big project that you're working on right now? I mean, I know you're featuring it on your Patreon and you've had a few installments, but is that your main project or do you have other things you're working on?
I am working on three things at the same time right now. I'm doing actually two books right now. I'm about to wrap up a 150-page graphic novel that I've been working on with a screenwriter who's just like the script is amazing, and I really hope that we're able to find a home for it. People are really gonna like it. It's very Cronenberg-esque body horror kind of thing. And it's been just like it's been a pleasure to work on, and it's wrapping up. I've got about 30 pages left of that. And then there was just some overlap with I'm doing a book that's not announced yet for Sumerian Comics. And that's going to be a 4-issue series. It's got some big music tie-ins with some bands. So as soon as we can, we'll announce that. And then yeah, and then I'm doing Three-Headed Pigman. Now, Three-Headed Pigman, I'm kind of taking my time trying to do just about a page a week, but the pages are being drawn on 19 by 24 board. They're really big. Uh, the reason that I'm doing that is because I get like a different line quality with using my whole arm, and God, they just look really, I mean, toot my own horn, but they just look really good. Like if I was an art buyer, I would want to snatch these up. And that's a goal too, is to sell it afterwards. But it's a very weird story, and it takes sharp left turns. It's going to be about 64 pages for the initial first volume. I'm putting out about a page a week on my Patreon, and the idea for that is to build up my Patreon. I want to get more people involved in my Patreon. I really try to make it like a place where people can go and feel like that $3 or $5 or $8 or whatever $1 a month that they put into it, like they're getting back something that's worth it. So, for $1 a month, I'm releasing this just the story in single panels. And so you can read it, panel a day or whatever. And then you can go in there and there's like a for lack of a better word, like a folder where you can just if you join now, you can go back and just read it in order. And then for the $3, I send out a physical sketchbook of some stuff that I did. And more sketchbooks will be coming out throughout the year and years. And then you'll get all the Three-Headed Pigman stuff. As long as I edit them early, I'll release my YouTube episodes early. And there's also like process things and other things that I work on. I kind of give like peeks at that. So that's cool. And that's just for the $3 level. And then at the $5 level, I have mini comics that I also do like in the time that I don't have. And I send those out physically. And then at the $8 level, after a year, you get a commission. And so, and it's ends up being cheaper than if you actually just asked me for a commission now.
I was curious how you're finding the Patreon experience because like a lot of people have encouraged me to do it, but I'm like I could barely get people to subscribe to my channel, let alone give me money for like
I hear you. Yeah,
it just seems like a lot of work, like doing the rewards and keeping up with it for I'm wondering if it's worth the turnaround.
well, I've got it to the point where it's sort of stuff that I'm doing anyway.
I understand.
And it's stuff that I'm not just releasing it on social media. And so, like, if you're a fan of my work, this is a great place to go and get, comics that you're not going to get anywhere else except for, through here. So, it, I've managed to, it took me a few years and I managed to figure out how to make it work for me. I think that if I were to do it again, I might just do a Substack, um, because I think that some people have found with the Patreon that like they don't notice when I post something. And they'll notice later. It's not like it's going anywhere. But I wish that there was more of an immediate like, oh, Chris posted something, here it is. Um, some people miss some things in it. And there's but I think that Patreon's working on some of those things too. But yeah, I think Substack is more of a all-in-one one-stop shop.
Yeah,
And if I had to do it over again, I would do that. But I've got so many, I've got a bunch of like kind of passive patrons that I don't want to lose,
yeah.
if I make the shift over. So I'll stay there. But I'm enjoying the experience, and it's sort of like a passive income. And then, when Three-Headed Pigman does finally come to its conclusion on the Patreon, and I'm able to print it physically, people at a certain tier level, they won't have to, back it on a crowdfund or whatever. I'm just gonna when I have it printed and ready to go, I'm just gonna hand them out to the people who've been, my loyal patrons for all this time.
So what is Three-Headed Pigman about? Because it seems a little body horror. It seems pretty esoteric. The art is really pretty, but it was kind of over my head. I was like, I'm not sure what's happening here.
Yeah, you're not going to know what's really going on yet. He's just sort of at this point in the first 6 pages, he's just sort of running his mouth about, weird stuff. But the first 6 pages that I'm going to release publicly, so people can get like a taste of it. The pages that I sent you actually. Um, it kind of starts out with this character who is a three-headed pig man. He has like the body that looks very much like Cable or a Liefeld thing. So I'm paying my tribute to that there. He has a cartoon pig head, a regular pig head, and this like demonic warthog skull head. Um, and the way that it came about was at Heroes Con last year, I got somebody to come up to me and say, I would love to get a commission from you. Draw whatever you want, artist choice. And so I was like trying to think about what to draw. And I went up to Jake Smith, who does uh, 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 well, he just did the Godzilla book with Andrew McLean. His work is beautiful. Blood Force Trauma. That was his big book that he did. Um, and he was like, yeah, whenever somebody asks for a commission like that, they never know what they're gonna get. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, they could get a three-headed pig man, and that's what they're taking home. And I was like, you know what? They're getting a three-headed pig man. And so I went back and I drew this character. And as I looked at it, I was like, wow, I could tell a cartoon slapstick story with this thing. I could tell an action story with, like a standard superhero story with this middle character. If you cut both heads off, it'd be like a Cable with a pig head. And then I could tell horror stories with this thing. He could almost be like a crypt keeper if I wanted him to be, or he could, you know, I could do anything with this story. So let's just see where it goes. And so I started to write it. And after the 6 page that you read, takes a sharp left turn, goes to the 1930s, and we meet this circus strongman. So I go back to like the beginnings of comics or superhero comics anyway, where Superman wears tights because of the circus strongman, and that is sort of where we start the story, and it's going to track the story of where the body of Three-Headed Pigman came from. And so it's gonna kind of take us on a journey.
That's I
Yeah.
like. Um, uh, what was I gonna say? I don't know. So start this crazy Chris Claremont expedition if you have such limited time. It seems like such a I don't know. Like because what else oh, is it, that's part of your channel, right?
It is part of my channel. So yeah, we're doing the Chris Claremont X-Men Comic Club. And then I also do interviews with creators where we'll talk about their most recent book for a first episode. And then I do a second episode where we go over a book that either got them hooked on comics or inspired them to want to make comics or that they just really love, and somehow inspired their style or the way that they think about it. And it's mostly I'm doing that to teach myself something, to really learn something. In fact, today, after we talk here, I'm going to have a guest on, and he picked Ronin, and I have the Absolute Edition. I have never read Ronin. Well, let me back that up. I finished it about 5 minutes before you pressed record.
And I'd Ronan either, so don't feel too bad.
Yeah, it's one of that's what I'm talking about. It's like one of those things where like you haven't read Ronin. Good to know there's somebody out there that wasn't just me because I feel like everybody knows all these things all the time, you know?
Vote on certain things and I
Yeah,
like pick up for it. But I don't know, sometimes I think, you'll discover it when you were meant to, or sometimes it's just not your thing. You know what I mean?
right.
It's question comes up often in the CKRS group. What's an artist that everybody loves that you just can't get into? And there's so many people like that, you know what I mean? Like, of course, you admire their talent and their legacy and their contribution, but every time, like, I try to pick up their work, I just can't get into it. Like, I have this artist edition of Will Eisner's Spirit, and I've just never read Will Eisner. His art looks beautiful, but there's just nothing about it that makes me have to read it. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, because he was speaking to a 1930s audience. It's really hard to get into. Like my dad was born in 1928. He loved the Spirit. I read those and I go, God, they're boring. Even early Fantastic Four, is like I can't read this crap. It's so boring to me.
I know like it's a hit or miss. It is for sure because I'm definitely, and there's another faction of people that I'm an unfortunate member of, the people who like didn't understand Kirby when they were younger. Because like I'm coming into comics with like John Byrne and Michael Golden, and I'm like, Kirby, this looks like so boring, and like they all look like old middle-aged men or like whatever. And then, but of course now, like once you're artistic uh tastes mature and you've just had enough experience as an artist and everything, like it's mind blowing, of course.
Same. Yeah, my Kirby phase happened about 5 years ago. It started.
Yeah,
Now I'm
it's
all in.
I feel like just be patient. Your Kirby era will come for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there's two artists that we're gonna hit on during this Claremont X-Men run that everybody hold in the highest regard. Not everybody, but a lot of people just like they can't say enough good things about their work. And I have resisted them and have not really enjoyed their work all these years. And I can't wait until we get to those parts in the run so that I can be converted.
Just throwing it out there, if you ever need a guest, I'd happily come on and talk about my Big Bang comic book because it's a masterclass in how to make an amazing superhero anthology.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Let's for sure do it.
Or I'd love that. I've been meaning to do a director's cut just because I love my book so much and I want everyone to know like everything about
Yeah, I've
it.
got it right here, so let's do it.
We'll put that on the deck. Speaking of Heroes Con, are we so sad that we're not there? Like everybody and their brother is there the year to be at Heroes Con. I know it's always a great con. I've never been. I'm kind of an introvert, so it's like kind of hard to even get me to get out for coffee. So, let alone to a convention. But congratulations to everyone. I hope they're having a great time. It looks like a virtual who's who of everybody from our circle to the biggest names in comic books. So
Yeah, I did the last two of them. I was a guest this year, invited to be a guest. I was last year too, and I had to bow out because my dog has been she's 17 and she's been sick and it was too much for my wife to do by herself. Of course, she came back around and she's better now, and I could have ended up going, but yeah, I keep telling everybody I'm gonna throw my phone into a lake until this weekend's over. I don't want to hear about it.
my dog is by my side right now, and that is my life. So I
Hmm.
so knowing what that you made the right decision.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I wonder what it is about Heroes Con seems like such a like big con. I wonder what makes it con. Maybe it's just the location that makes it easier for everybody to get together, or I don't know.
No, I think that honestly, here's what I think that it is. I think that Shelton, who runs it and owns the store, heroes aren't hard to find. They've been putting it on for years, so it's been building and building and building for years. But there's a personal his family is involved, his daughter is involved. It's a family run business. They make personal connections with everybody there. At the end, they invite all the guests and creators who table there to come to the shop, and they throw a huge barbecue where, like last year, like I think like Walt Simonson was on one side of me and Jim Shooter was on the other side of me, and like, like Michelle Fife is right there, and like, it's like it's everybody is at the show. Like I always say about the show, it's easier to name the people who aren't there than it is to name the people who are there, because everybody's there. And then when they bring it together into this sort of, closing of the show where it's not all the fans, it's just all the creators there, and it's something special. And I think that people creators end up just looking forward to it, and it's not a Hollywood show. There's no, you know, fifth Red Power Ranger autograph signing. People that go there love comics. People buy indie comics there. Can you imagine? And there's art collectors that come from all around the country to get commissions. Like it's one of the few shows where I'll fly to it. Hotels are expensive, flights are expensive. The table's actually cheap there, and when you're a guest, they give it to you. But like the covering the cost of all of that stuff, it's expensive. And that is one of the few shows.
Heard it, my God.
Well, that's one of the few shows where I've made all of that back before I even went, just by people finding out that I was going to be there, reaching out to me and asking for commissions. So it's a magical show.
Next year, I should have another book by then, so hopefully more reason to go. I don't know. And I do have some friends who live in North Carolina, so I feel like they would let me stay at their.
Even
But
better.
so, are you any convention plans? Are you going to San Diego, or you don't know yet?
I think I'm gonna go. Eli Schwab put out my art book, actually. Uh, uh, Gray Matter Drip: The Art of Chris Anderson. So he's gonna have a big presence there this year, and he asked me to come for a day. So I'll probably drive or take the train down there just for a day. I don't know if I need to go longer than that. It's such a crazy shit show.
Well, and but the train is awesome. I love taking the train to San
Oh
Diego. So
yeah. Yeah, the train's the best. I was gonna go to Rose City, but it's in September, and so is CXC in Columbus. And so with the dog, she's fine, but I shouldn't leave her two weeks in a month. I'm probably gonna go to CXC instead. So that's the one show that I have in the books right now.
your channel, your art book just came out. Three-headed pig man. Is there anything else you want to share with us or talk about before we wrap this up today?
Not right now. I mean, there's plenty of things coming. If you want to sign up to my newsletter, that's a really great way to, stay in touch with things going on. If you really want to know what's going on, sign up to the Patreon, because there I'm interacting with everybody, as much as I can. So that's a really great way to find out what's going on. There's a lot of really great things on the horizon coming out, that I'm excited to share, but just can't do it yet. Um, And yeah, I mean that's about it right now. You can go to my website and you can find copies of Chaotic Neutral and Lost Angels and Spectral, and then go to cosmiclion.com and get Gray Matter Drip, the art of Chris Anderson. And I think that's about it.